Swami Rama Sadaka Grama. Sadaka Grama means the village of the seeker. The village of the seekers. Those seekers that seek spiritual wisdom, that seek peace within themselves. Our, how shall I say, Swami Veda Bharati does not believe in being called a guru or a master. He says, I know what a real guru and a real master is. And he is much, much bigger than me. And when he talks like that, he talks about his master, Swami Rama of the Himalayas. And I told you a little bit about the people that are involved, but as your memory is still fresh, I just want to put in a little bit of pointers to what you saw. The village of seekers, therefore, we have loads of individual houses in beautiful gardens, as you can see. And when we all laughed about the funny faces and the throwing of colors, that was last weekend. It's an Indian holiday that is called Holi. And what it means is it's the beginning of spring. So therefore, because everybody is happy, winter is over, it's the beginning of spring, the tradition is to throw colored water at each other or colored powder. And people do it everywhere, even in the big cities, in the towns. I was warned never to fly on that day because you would arrive at the airport not any respectable way or form. So it is very lively, very joyful festivity to welcome the spring. Then another thing you saw, you might not know what it was. In front of the Buddha statue, on the ground, there was something that's called a rangoli. It's a painting that is done with colored rice powder in very ancient forms. It's also the Tibetan who practice that as a form of spirituality. It's a form of dharana, of concentration. The powder runs in finest lines through your fingers, and you draw these patterns on the floor with this colored rice flowers. It's a sacred art, and the beauty of it is it's on the floor, it is powder, so 24 hours later you have walked through it, it's gone, it's evaporated. Talking about the temporariness of life. We do, we live, we create beautiful art. Our whole life is a beautiful art form. But then it's gone. So the Rangoli is a very, very meaningful, deep, and each pattern has got different meanings and so on. We can't go into all that. But just to point out what you saw and might not have understood what it was. Another thing that I will not come back and when I talk about the tradition just now, you saw wires hanging, and the caption was something about if you come visit the lab. We have a laboratory where scientific research is done on brain waves, brainwave patterns, change of brainwave patterns that happens through meditation or through practicing science. It's a big research project that is entering the meditational field now in quite a big way. We have a small laboratory, but we have a lot of people. So we've got a lot of data that we can collect and evaluate. So that's going on as well. So please don't think of an ashram or the tradition or Sadaka Grama as a stuffy old monastery, as you saw. It is a monastery in some sense, but it's not like a monastery at all. And I'll sure you got that sense. Okay. Is there anything else that struck you that you would like to know something about from the film?
I think at least for the second song, I think Swami Rama sings.
I think you're right.
Yeah,
I think.
Swami Rama sings. Beautiful word.
Swami Rama was a painter, he was a musician, he was a scholar, he was a scientist, he was a medical man. Many things.
That's why there is a recording studio, something?
Yes, yes, we have a super recording studio where chants, lectures, talks are recorded and edited, state-of-the-art recording studio. But it's always about sacred art. Yeah. A lot of chanting music, but also making music with Indian instruments. Anything else? Sorry, you just have to put up with my coughing. I have to put up with it too. Okay. All right. Now, that is the outer form that you saw of the tradition. The Himalayan tradition is a very, very, very old tradition. And I can, it's okay, don't. And I can truly say that because the word yoga is mentioned for the first time in the most ancient scriptures, like scientists debate anything between 3, 5, 7, and 10,000 years old. So it's a very, very, very old tradition. If you think of a map of India or a map of Asia and envisage that, you see that the Himalayas are a very central bridge between Asia, Siberia, Southeast Asia, the Mediterranean country on the west side, and East Asia on the other side. It is this which has made the Himalayas such a hub of spirituality. Since very, very ancient times, people from the West have migrated east through the foothills of the Himalayas. People from China, from Tibet, have brought scriptures down and have shared wisdom. Teachers from the east have come to the Himalayas and shared wisdom, and teachers from the south have come. And all this wisdom together was always exchanged in the Himalayas. There are some very, very old universities. There are ruins, of course, now. One is Nalandini, which is a very, very old university, which used to have thousands of students, and people from all over that part of the world would gather there and share knowledge. But something even more drastic than that, and earlier than that, this kind of fertile foothills, always people have invaded them, and there was internal strife for superiority between different, how shall I say, clans. Kingdom is the Western world. We have to be, when we talk about these things, extremely careful, because we do otherwise what the British colonialists, sorry, I'm British, British colonialists and the missionaries have done. They have taken their grid of understanding something and put it onto some very different culture. We must not fall into the same trap. So I tried to use very, very open language throughout. So people have come through in terms of military aims, like Alexander the Great. People have come and have had internal strife apart from these kingdoms, old tribes. Nobody knows anymore about it, only research scientists like Yadus and sorry, don't come to mind right now. Anyway, so whenever there was this difficulty or conflict, there's even theory that the old ice age is involved in this story, because the people came with the ice moving down, they needed shelter. And in any of these movements, you might have heard about Harappa civilization and the Sarasvati culture, very old cultures, beyond what we understand of history. When these cultures went down, they went down because of natural disasters. There was a huge big river as wide as the Amazon. I'm exaggerating, you have to understand that I sometimes paint pictures for you to understand something, right? So I don't know whether it was as wide as the Amazon, but just as a picture, right? And today it is an underground trickle because the earth changes through earthquakes and so on. So whether it was the strife that happened was through politics, through invasions, through exchange of knowledge, or through simple natural events, whenever those things happened, the wise ones would retreat into the mountains and in the mountainous cave, so that the culture, the knowledge, and later on the scriptures would be preserved. And they would come down again when all the thing had settled. So the tradition of the wise ones moving into the Himalayas to preserve knowledge is very, very old and has happened continually throughout the ages until now. All right? And don't put it on a scale and say you have got mixed the years up or so on, but I'm trying to paint a picture in your mind. So the wise one, no matter what, and through ancient time, have always moved into the Himalayas. And now some more to our time, some newer ones, like Pythagoras. You hear what I said?
Yes.
Some newer ones, like Pythagoras. Right? Even people like that went to the Himalayas, went to the sages of that region. Don't talk about India, because there was no India. India is a new invention. Into that region and have exchanged knowledge, studied there and learned and brought back things. Pythagoras, for instance, brought back the issue, the form of living in ashrams as vegetarians and celibates. That idea, because he's got from those sages in the Himalayas. So, the tradition of sages moving into the mountain to create special environments for themselves and to learn, to study more, to preserve knowledge that was already there, and to share it, has been going on for thousands and thousands and thousands of years. In our lifetime, one such figure was Swami Rama. Swami Rama came from a devout, of course, family, and his parents died very early, and as a 3-year-old taken to live in the cave monasteries with these sages that preserve the knowledge and have what is called cave monasteries, when he was 3 years old. And so he was brought up with these wise guys. So he was brought up by these amazingly wise people and learned yoga, the ancient knowledge, from his master. Now his master, Bengali Baba, was a very, very insightful person, because he was wasn't just taking that child and bringing it up with what he knows, he knew, but he made him go and study with many, many masters, including the Tibetan Buddhist masters. His grandmaster, the master of his master, like grandfather, the grandmaster, was a Tibetan Lama, a Tibetan grandmaster. He sent him to university to study. He sent him later to university to study medicine in the West. He went to work with the Menninger Institute in scientific research in America. So Swami Rama was a person who in our modern area brought the knowledge of various different kinds and tradition together. And his, as you saw in the video, his declared goal or purpose of his life was no discrimination between any religion. His purpose is not even intellectually battling about what is truth and what is not truth. You read just there that there are thousands who have done that before me. His message is focus on your own inner self, because all the wisdom lives inside you as love. And his job, so he understood, was to awaken that wisdom, that inner master, that inner teacher, that inner guru, that inner wisdom love in you, in the people that he met. That was his mission. He went, maybe one more thing. The great rishis, the masters that kept the knowledge that had been gathered through this incredible cultural fertile ground, they every now and then came down from the mountains and taught and helped people to understand this knowledge. They spread that knowledge. I'm cutting a few corners here to not get too complicated, but essentially one such person was somebody called Shankacharya. And Shankacharya was, again, a very childhood wise person who already had reached great wisdom in childhood. And Shankacharya went through all parts of India and gathered, again, traditions and scriptures and interpreted them and wrote books on them. But his main thing was that the wandering monks that were there to spread the wisdom through the country, he organized them in 4 corners of India and the center in 5 monasteries, you could say, and the 5 monasteries in 10 monastic orders. And each of those monasteries was called the seat of a Shankacharya. Shankacharya was the name of this plateau of India because he had a similar impetus on the thinking of India than Plato had on the Western world.